this respect. We look forward to doing some more with the Lagos State government to reduce unemployment, especially youth unemployment in Lagos State. If we do reduce youth unemployment significantly across the country, a lot of the problems that Nigeria confronts presently will be minimized. And so for us at KEC, it is an article of faith between ourselves and the youth of Nigeria to continue to play our own humble role in dealing with this hydra-headed monster of unemployment among the youth. I also like to thank the American Corner. This is our first collaboration with the American Corner, and I'd like to thank Stephanie and her team for this opportunity. I look forward to KEC and the American Corner going forward. I also like to thank our key, the panelists, the participants from across the world. I see that there are people from different parts of the country. There are people from Liberia, people from the United Kingdom, people from far-flung parts of Nigeria like Sokoto, like Nsukka in Enugu State, and so on and so forth. I'd like to congratulate all of you who have found the time to join this event. What I do promise is that all of you will take away valuable insights about this all-important development in the evolution of the world economy. What has happened? The theme for this workshop, which is the rise of remote work, was carefully selected to align with a very important phase in what we see as the end of one civilization and the beginning of a second civilization. We are faced with what 2020 and part of this 2021 have taught the world is a very important lesson. I was just reading a post about somebody posted this, in the middle of 2020. He talked about the businesses that had closed down. He said Victoria's Secret has declared bankruptcy. Zara, the popular supermarket chain, closed 1,200 stores. Chanel, the luxury chain, Hermes, and Rolex have all stopped production. Nike is getting ready for stage 2 of redundancies. Airbnb founder says that due to the pandemic, 12 years of effort have been destroyed in 6 weeks. Starbucks, the coffee maker, has announced the permanent closure of about 400 stores, and so on and so forth. So, if you update this report, I'm sure that we are confronted with an even more dire situation. But what is important, and which is central to the theme of this workshop, is that against this very background of doom and despair is also a myriad of opportunities. For example, you will see that some companies have sprung up on the ashes of this pandemic. But some of them have grown their staff strength exponentially. Some of them have grown their value, exponentially. And, suddenly we have billionaires and, across new sectors. And so the question that all of us have to ask ourselves, whether you are a job applicant or an entrepreneur or a business person or an intellectual that is, interested in documenting history, is on what side are you? Are you going to, focus on the history that is gone, the despair and the gloom and doom, or you're going to focus on the opportunities that this whole era has thrown up for us? And remote work is definitely one of the areas of opportunities that we're focusing on. And we invite you to listen and learn and empower yourself at the end of this thing through knowledge, through the exposition to the very knowledgeable panelists and keynote speakers who are going to share with you the survival strategies and the tips that will enable you to thrive, not just to survive, but to thrive and perhaps reach for the skies, even on the ashes of this very sad phase in the world history. So on this note, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you once again to this career workshop and thank my colleagues, the team at Knowledge Exchange, ably headed by Agogo, and then all of you that are attending, and wish you a very enjoyable and informative sessions. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless Nigeria. God bless Lagos State. And God bless all of you that are attending. You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful opening remark. Really appreciate you, sir. Okay, so the next speaker who will be giving her opening remark is the Honorable Commissioner. I would like to confirm if the Honorable Commissioner is there. Good morning, ma'am. I just want to be sure. Good morning. Do we have the Honorable Commissioner?
Good morning, Agogo. She will soon be joining. She will join any moment from now.
Okay.
Join any moment.
Okay, so
during our speech.
Okay, so while we wait for the Honorable Commissioner, I think we'll just use the opportunity to have Omolara give us a keynote address. Omolara, I don't know if you are ready for that, just to confirm, so that we save time.
Okay, I guess I will go then.
Oh, okay. Sorry for putting you on the spot so soon. I know.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Omolara Aramire. As rightly introduced, I lead the People Unit here at KECCareersAdvice, aka I'm the Director of People. The position popularly known as Director of Human Resources. So today, as requested by the organizers, I'm here to talk about the rise of remote work, especially what it means for us here in Africa. So one thing I'll just say is remote work is actually thriving here in Africa. It's here to stay, especially in the tech industry. Yesterday, I had an interview with my CEO, and we were interviewing for a front-end engineering position. And the candidate clearly stated that he would only be considering the offer only if the position allows him work remotely. And that's just basically to tell you where we are right now. People are clamoring for remote work. Remote work is here to stay, like I said, for some employees at least. So we don't want to confuse it that it's an opportunity for everybody. Some roles would demand that you have to work in and out of your office. The pandemic has actually made us all start asking ourselves this question: can I work from home, or am I bound to my workspace? For someone like me, would I say I can work from home, but I enjoy the luxury of having to come into the office. So what the pandemic has done for us is that it has broken down all the social, cultural, and technological barriers that we as organizations can come up with to say people cannot work from home. They always have to come into the office. This pandemic has also set in motion a structural shift of where work can take place, or at least for some people. So now my employer can no longer tell me that I cannot deliver, especially since I'm in HR, I run a global team. I use myself as an example. Here at KECCareersAdvice, I have the remote workers. I have a hybrid of those who work remotely and those who still coming into the office. And then I have the people who are the flexi workers. So to start with, I'd like to clarify the term remote work and what is known as telecommuting. So I'll just let us know that what we all enjoyed during the pandemic, or what the pandemic forced a lot of companies to do, was actually remote telecommuting, which was work from home. So even though both terms are used interchangeably, to the confusion of many, there's actually a slight difference in the two terms. So I'll start from the remote worker. The remote worker can literally work from anywhere in the world. This person is not bound by location. So what that means is that I can be a Nigerian and I can work, my company can be in the US. I would really never have any reason to go into the US office. My contract already says I can work from anywhere. So we look at the example of when we're drawing up employment contracts here in Nigeria, we always talk about how we state the location where we want the people to work from. Oh, your office will be in Yaba, your office will be in Abuja. We always state the location. And sometimes we also have to endure relocation costs because we always have to move these people to come to that location. But the remote worker doesn't need to be that person. You don't need to bring that person into the person. Person can work from any time zone and all of that. But when it comes to telecommuting basically tells you that you have that option to work from home on some days, but then you have an office to report to. You have in-team meetings to report to. So what telecommuting does is that it offers you a flexibility to either work from home, work from any cafe. Like what I usually do is I can decide, oh, I'm not coming into the office today. I can work from a co-working space. I can decide to pay to go to a space. I can work from the beach, but I still have to occasionally come back into the office. So telecommuting is what we all enjoy because a lot of companies were forced to have all their employees work from home. So now that the pandemic is gradually coming to a close, or should I say, we're finding a solution to the pandemic, people are gradually returning back to the office space. So that means that what we've enjoyed has not been remote work, because what we could have had is say, okay, now that we've been able to tell you to allow you work from home, you can decide not to come into the office anymore. But what we have is that we're all going back into the office. So while I've just been able to clarify that, I hope everyone now understands what it means, telecommuting work from home. But it basically just means that there's been a shift in how we see the work or how we think of work in terms of our employees, who our employees can be. So one question that pops up right nowadays when we're having interviews is that you have people ask you, can I work from home on some days? Is remote work applicable? These are conversations that are popping up. And I've recently had an employee tell me, especially when we decided that we needed to go back to the office. And he told me he would like his contract revisited because he doesn't see himself coming into the office. And what that basically meant is that he's a good resource. We could not allow to let him go. We then decided to then look at what the terms of this contract can be. How do we make sure that we still keep this silent without losing him just because, oh, we do not have a remote work policy? We had to now then change his policy, his contract that to say, okay, your contract is going to allow you work remotely. So you can continue to work. So I'm happy to say that it's still a staff of CCO. And right now within the team, we have remote workers in Canada. We just recently onboarded an intern who is based in Canada. So you can imagine someone who is still in school, he needs to do an internship as part of his study, and is in Canada. We won't bring him all the way down to Nigeria. So we've had to also look at that. We also recently onboarded someone in Ondo State also to work remotely for the team. So as an organization here at CCO, we're already expanding. It's no longer the future of work for us. It's actually now our reality. So one of the benefits of remote work for organization is the access to global talent pools that it gives you. So you look at it when you need to employ, you're looking at the fact that, oh, I need someone who works in Lagos. Sometimes some people would say, I need someone who's not living so far from Lekki, or should I say someone who doesn't live so far from Yaba, which is where our office is located. But when you have the option of remote work, you have that access to pool. And trust me, the talents are out there. When you remove all these barriers, which would restrict you from getting the best talent, it gives you an access to say, and this benefit is especially valuable for companies that struggle to find candidates to fill certain roles. And most of these roles are mostly right now in the tech space. When you're talking about front-end engineer, the engineering team, those are the people that are actually clamoring for remote work because they've enjoyed the benefit. They see what it means that they can work with US companies and don't necessarily have to even know who their colleagues are, right? See their colleagues physically. So I also do not have official figures, but companies who offer remote work experience have lower turnover rates, which is like I've explained earlier about the employee we had who, rather than let him go, we actually had to just look at the terms of his contract to see, how do we make sure we do not lose this talent? Because he's actually good talent. So why should I lose this talent simply because he's told me he doesn't want to work from home, and I want to insist he works from the office. And again, his role doesn't necessarily demand that he comes to the office. So, but if a role demands that you come into the office, the max you can probably ask your employer might be flexibility. You cannot get remote work. So I think we also need to start asking ourselves, what are the requirements of my role? Before you start asking your employer for, oh, I want to work remotely. Is your work something that can actually be done offline? If you do not show up in your office, would there be anything missing? So those are those things. And the value becomes apparent when considering replacing highly trained employees. Again, we know how much it costs us to have to replace people. Sometimes we're getting this new replacement at times 2 or even times 3 of what the person that we're almost letting go simply because this person doesn't want to work from home. The flexibility remote work gives us is that it decreases the pressure that employees always have, especially pressures that have to do with commute. And we all know how Lagos traffic can be. We know how many hours we spend in Lagos traffic. We spend average of 2-3 hours in traffic sometimes. And if you're allowed to work remotely or you're allowed that flexibility of working from home, you already know that those times you're going to spend in traffic, you can actually spend that during your work at home. And on the days when I get to enjoy work from home, I see all of these benefits. A lot of companies were also able to save significantly. We actually have to tell ourselves the honest truth. A lot of companies were actually able to save significantly during the lockdown. What that means is that having a remote workforce actually helps us reduce our operation costs, which means that some of the monies we're pouring into renting us office space, remote work was able to allow us to cut it down. I had one of my friends work in an organization where now the office is actually contemplating the benefit of having them back in the office because they said they've been able to save money significantly, like the amount of money the company was able to save. They've been able to use it for something else, actually use that in actually procuring benefits for the employees rather than say, okay, we need to pay for rent and all that. But now that they're thinking of coming back to the office, it's more of a struggle because the benefit of having the employees work from home right now outweighs having them back in the office. So the major problem we have in Africa fully embracing remote work is actually our employees. And we have to be honest with ourselves. Do we have employees who are responsible enough? Can we trust them to carry out their duties without having to handhold them or regularly having to check in on them? Can we communicate effectively? So imagine someone who, even face-to-face communication is a problem when you're in the office. This person probably never even delivers. You have to ask them, you have to go back to them countless times. Then imagine having to give this person opportunity to work remotely. It's actually sort of a disaster waiting to happen. And like I said, you need to actually weigh your roles and see how much of remote work can I give this person? How much of flexibility can this person have on this role? Imagine a finance person or a facility manager. A facility manager working from home, how does that work? The facility still needs to be managed. So your facility manager has to come into the office space almost every day because people have to come into the office. And the facility manager has to manage this space. Trust and responsibility work. For the manager supervising someone remotely, some new strategies might need to be adopted. One of the biggest challenges to avoiding miscommunication, which might occur when not chatting face-to-face. And thank God for the likes of Zoom, Hangouts, Slacks, and all of that. We've been able to address some of these challenges. Also, one of the Okay, can I go ahead? There seems to be an echo somewhere. Okay, so one challenge we also want to talk about that we have on the employer side look at also is actually productivity. How do we know the person is actually working? How are we ensuring that this person is not taking on multiple roles at the same time, using our company time that we're paying for to also work on projects or work with other companies, 2-3 companies. Some of these remote workers, that's what they clamor for. So how much of this affects our own deliverables? And one of the ways we can address this challenge is to make sure that we set targets. We have daily benchmarks with our employees. have due dates, the same way would work if you're in the office. How I would say, okay, these are the tasks you need to complete by the end of today. You can also achieve that with someone working remotely, especially when employees take ownership of their role. Their attitudes begin to change towards completing tasks on time as against, oh, it's not my business, it's somebody else's work. Productivity should also be measured based on the results that the employee achieves, not on how many hours of work. Like, so we need to move away from that. Some people call it eye service, where you're like, oh, my boss, I have to clock in 8 hours in the office. To be honest, not everybody gets to actually work for all 8 hours. We have to be honest with ourselves. Some people just work for 5 hours and they're done. Whatever task you've given to them, they can complete it in 5 hours. So if I'm able to complete my task in 5 hours, what am I doing for the remaining 3 hours? So that's why we say, start measuring your productivity based on the results that your employees achieve, not on the numbers of hours that they use. And there are various tools to also measure productivity. The war for talent right now is super intense, and we have to all be honest with ourselves. We're all bleeding, especially now in this era of everybody jumping to Canada and all of that. I have a friend who's recently moved to Canada, but our company in Nigeria has also not been able to let her go because she's good resource. So what they're doing is they're actually paying her to work here in Nigeria. She works Nigerian time, but she's based in Canada. It also works for her because it gives her a source of income. This also helps her in the process of having to find a new employer back there in Canada. So whatever it is we want to do, whether it's remote work, whether it's telecommuting, we as organizations need to put the policy in place. We just don't leave it to chance. We don't just say, oh, okay, let's go with the flow. You need to start updating your policies. You need to start updating your strategies to see how you can accommodate this new normal, because that's where we are actually. So organizations need to actually really embrace it, especially if you want to keep this generation of employees. They would ask you for more flexibility. They would ask you, oh, when do I have to come in? How many days do I have to come in for? Or can I decide to work from home today? Or I have this, I don't feel like coming into the workplace. I don't want to go through this traffic. We all know how terrible the traffic can be. So those are those things I think we as employers need to start embracing, and then we will all be happy at the end of the day. You won't cry when your best employee is leaving you, because you've offered solutions to them to see how best to keep them. So I think I'm done on that. I hope I didn't take too much time.
Can I just do this little interjection?
Oh, okay, madam. Okay.
You've spoken so well, but what about the fact that for you to play that role, you must have IT knowledge? You see, I'm so surprised and perturbed at, the lack of knowledge of most youths in digitalization and all these IT stuffs, because we established a portal in my ministry and I discovered that youth are finding it difficult to really operate within the portal. So you can do all that you have said if you have IT knowledge. If you don't have it, forget it. You can work at home. You can achieve a lot of deliverables. You don't really need to go to work. And that's the new trend right now. That is where the world is taking us to. Ability to achieve what you want to achieve with a mindset to achieve it, and having acquired the appropriate knowledge, to do it. That is what is key. I was so surprised to see that. Some young people could not even fill their details on the portal. So how do you assign jobs to those people and you expect, them to deliver? Yes, productivity should be measured according to deliverables as against the time choosing to do it. Because if you have the appropriate knowledge, you can achieve a lot by working at home as against going to office. It's not the office. Forget about office right now. It is about IT, and it is about the total knowledge of it and your ability, to achieve all you want to achieve by using it, as a tool. No, just to keep that in. I love what you presented. It's good. People are earning from Canada and they are in Nigeria because they are resourceful. People are earning. People have work in America. and they're still doing the work. They came home, they're doing the work, and they're making their monies. But you must have the prerequisite knowledge to be able to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. That was a good feedback. So like I pointed out earlier, you have to have everything in place. Not every job role can be remote. We always have to remember that. And like I said, you, as an organization, you need to ask yourself, this person that is asking me for remote work, how much can he achieve back end? If the IT knowledge is an issue, then your training department needs to now step up to say, how do we update the skill of our employees to say, we need you to be at this space, we need you to be at this level of knowledge before we can allow you work remotely, or before we can start considering if remote work is an option for you. But
okay,
you don't just...
what about an intern that choose to go to the portal? What about an intern that choose to apply on the portal, knowing fully well that he does not have the prerequisite knowledge to do so? And that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about training that could be impacted by your employer. I'm not talking about, no, definitely. If you have to show that you have the prerequisite knowledge before you could be asked to work from home. Then another thing which is very critical about youth of nowadays is, the nation. Anywhere you get to, you need to be a solution. And to be a solution giver, you must be able to look at the loopholes. What are the things that I can do differently that can really make me, look valued than what others are doing? So those are the issues. We need to have vast knowledge. You see, youths of nowadays, my issue with you is your complacency, your sense of commitment. For you. And unfortunately, with leaders who got to where they are, through hard work. Now, those hard work will be very seamless now if you know what to do and how to achieve what you want to do. Productivity must be linked with deliverables as against hours on the job. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very, very much, Ma, for that insightful contribution. I was watching the Honorable Commissioner yesterday on TVC with Uncle Yori, when she was sharing about some of the things that the Ministry of Wealth Creation and Employment are doing in the state. And I must really, really commend the effort of the ministry in helping to solve the unemployment issues in Lagos State. And so we're going to move straight to your opening remarks since you have already started. The Honorable Commissioner, Honorable Yetunde Arobieke, will be giving us the next opening remark. She has been very, very supportive to this career workshop since inception. Last year, she was also available to contribute her quota to this great event. We find it a great honor to have the Honorable Commissioner in our midst, and we look forward to your wonderful speech, Ma. So can we have your speech, Ma, for the next 10 minutes? Hello, can you? Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
okay. It is my pleasure to give this remark of knowledge workshop. Theme: the rise of remote work, opportunities and challenges. And like I said, the lady that spoke right now has done a lot of justice to the challenges, but the opportunities too are too many. She equally spoke about, having to, because of hold ups, having to avoid, a lot of problems on the road, and really talking about deliverables, which I think should be the yardstick or the indices of really measuring performance. And to crown it all, COVID-19 pandemic hit the globe. It's not only in Lagos, it's not only in Nigeria. The pandemic, we say it's pandemic. The pandemic, it's a global thing. And so we thank God it's like we're getting out of it, but we're still in it. Now, COVID-19 pandemic hit the globe last year, affecting the social, economic, health, and other areas of human endeavor negatively. No doubt, it changed our attitudes and habits. Wearing a mask in public and working from home, for example, became the new normal. And I can remember several times during the lockdown that a lot of categories of workers are being compelled to stay at home to avoid a situation whereby contact could lead to more people really getting the COVID. So I could remember that last year's edition of this program was held virtually. As the crisis reared its head again, the pace of business became totally different. However, there was the need to solve all problems brought about by the pandemic by resulting to teleworking and adapting to the new norms. The by a huge number of unemployed youths out there called for the need to regularly organize career workshops, bringing about networking for success and learning about key career readiness skills. I therefore commend Knowledge Exchange Center for their sustained efforts on this course, particularly as a corporate as corporate social responsibility. Lagos State, however, is partnering on this to further show our commitment to achieving the third and fourth pillar of the present administration, our themes agenda, which is very popular, and the E stands for education and technology, and making Lagos a 21st century economy. Effective means to reduce unemployment in the state. On this note, already my lovely lady, speaking to issues, and I quite agree with most of the point that she has raised. But you see, one thing that amuses me is that out of the country, working at home, even before the pandemic, was a reality. People, companies encouraging their workers to work at home as if they knew there's going to be something that will blow all of us out of our feet and will be, unable to, move around like we normally do. So making it a new normal now in countries like Africa, where we are used to walking, driving, and stressing ourselves to get to work. Most of the things we could really achieve by just sitting in a corner in the comfort of our homes and addressing those issues. Because what really matters is productivity. It's not about where you do it, how many hours it takes you to accomplish a task. So on this note, I hereby declare the career workshop open to the glory of God and benefit of the people of Lagos State. And I thank you. I say, God bless you. Thank you very much. Yes, I was privileged to be with Yori yesterday, and we spoke a lot about all the things we are offering in terms of our commitment to reduce unemployment drastically to like a no more unemployment. But you will agree with me that unemployment itself is a pandemic. It's all over the world, but it's not to be treated as such. We really need to make conscious effort to address, because the unemployment situation has the potential to move, to turn to a security issue. And, because the adage says, an hungry man is an angry man. So there is a conscious need for us. And that is where in our team's agenda, the fourth part, which is making Lagos a 21st century, applies a lot to us. And in the Ministry of Wealth Creation and Employment, our mandate and responsibility is to initiate, we are to formulate, we execute, and we evaluate all the policies of wealth, creation in Lagos State. And to that, we've been able to devise so many things. In fact, you will be hearing so many things coming out of the ministry, where, like we did Eco Token, which we'll be launching. It's a royalty product that gives you money back instead of points, which I am used to. If I travel out of the country, all I knew they give are points. At the end of the day, they now turn it to something you can use, to purchase. But this is outright cash, just to attend to issues that the lockdown had brought, our way. Any store and you see a code token, you get a refund back on whatever purchase you make. The percentage will be reeled out, eventually. And we are into, so many things, trying to encourage the youths in diverse ways, like the solar energy we're talking about, like the youth engagement to solve the disconnect between government and youth. So we are in this together, and we appreciate the role you are playing by partnering with us. And we want to let you know that further initiatives that you really know could assist us in solving this unemployment problem, will be well taken, and we will see to it that we give it all appropriate attention, because the task is to make sure that no youth is left unemployed. Thank you very much for the little time given. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Everyone, that was Honorable Yetunde Ariobieke.
Don't bastardize that name. Oh.
Apologize.
It is
Ariobieke.
Ariobieke. Exactly, you got it right now.
Thank you so much, Ma. That was the Honorable Commissioner, Ministry of Wealth, Creation and Employment, Lagos State. We appreciate your views, your opinions, and for sharing with us what Lagos State is doing. And again, we're emphasizing its commitment to reduce unemployment in Lagos State and in Nigeria as a whole. So thank you very much, Ma. Although we'd have loved to see your lovely face, your video is not turned on, but we do appreciate very amazing remarks. Thank you so much once again, ma'am.
You're most welcome.
So really quick, we're going to be moving into the panel discussion proper. We thank every one of our audience for being with us here today and for still being here. So real quick, I will introduce our moderator for the panel discussion, who is also the person that gave us the keynote address. We called her up for the keynote address. We put her on the spot. It wasn't time yet, but yeah, she gave her keynote address and she wasn't properly introduced. So please allow me to do the introductions for Omolara Aromire. Now she's the HR startup and employee experience professional with over 10 years post-graduation progressive multicultural experience in Nigeria, India, and Germany, and across different industries and geographies. Omolara is currently the director of people at Co-Creation Hub, and I can tell you she's doing an amazing job. I've had onboarding sessions with people from people that they just recently employed from Canada, like she mentioned, from Akure, and I'm just like, it's fantastic, And so yes, she's going to be leading us into this next session of the panel discussion. So please, everyone, join me as I welcome Omolara Aromire. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. a pleasure to be here once again.
Hello, Omolara.
Hi.
Yeah, please, you can go on with the panel discussion. Yeah, all the panelists are available, and so maybe we'll just have their profile on the screen so they can start their 5 minutes introduction. Would that be okay?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Welcome once again, everyone. So I'd like my fellow panelists to please introduce themselves. As Stephanie has rightly mentioned, my name is Lara Arumire. I lead the people unit here at Co-Creation Hub, popularly known as CC Hub. So I welcome on stage Dr. Mark Perkins while he gives his introduction. So welcome once again.
Thank you very much. If I understand you correctly, I should begin, is that right?
So you can just introduce yourself. You have 5 minutes to do that.
Okay, fine. Well, first of all, thank you very much, everybody, and Agogo in particular for inviting me to speak at this event, which is really interesting and exciting for me. So I'd like to give a very short introduction to me and what I do. And then I'll have a minute or two about the topic for me, which is what employers are looking for in today's employees. After that, perhaps some words about different cultures and how they work. And finally, some ideas about hot sectors. There may not be enough time for that in my presentation, but perhaps afterwards. So I live in Cambridge in the UK. And Cambridge is a university city, but also a center of technology. It's probably our biggest tech center in the UK. It's very dynamic, a huge number of companies, a huge number of diverse technologies. And we get lots of visitors from high-profile delegations in normal times. And they often ask us, well, what's the secret? And we say, well, there is no secret. It's just organic. This is how it works. And in terms of what employers are looking for in employees, this is a whole sector in itself. It's very highly qualified people who gel together in small groups and make businesses. And our visitors then repeat the question, well, what's the formula? Is there a procedure? And there isn't. So that's a point because the workplace is incredibly diverse. It ranges from that type of business to health, where, for example, my youngest son will train to be a music therapist. And in this era of automation, job destruction, the so-called micro-personal services are going to be more and more in demand. So that's really interesting. So what I do is I manage and own a training company. And I've got clients in different countries. I've lived in Italy, Czechoslovakia, and Sweden in my time. And I've worked in different organizations. I've visited many companies and trained many people myself. So what I do now is organize teams for different assignments, you could say. So we train people in China, in universities, that's faculty and employees. We have people in Poland, clients in Poland who are university graduates and biomass engineers. Lots of work there. And we still have very good connections in the Nordic countries, in Sweden and Finland in particular. So I'll come to the point, which is what are employers looking for? And I noted down perhaps 4 or 5 key points. First is the skills fit, which is really important. So you get a CV and you think, does this person fit the profile of the job? Does he or she have the skills? That's number 1. Number 2 for me is a good CV. It's got to be well presented, so I can see at a glance if this person is right, if they're well organized. And I also like to see on the CV about other capabilities they may have, which may be interesting to me. Then there is the potential of this person, because it's not just the skill for this job. What potential in the future does this person have? Because I might want to train the person further. I might see, oh, there's something here on the CV which says they might be a good communicator or a future manager. So that's important. And the last point is the personal fit. Will this person fit into my team? Will I get along with this person? Will the other people get along with this person? So I interviewed a young woman yesterday. I've got a huge bank of teachers and trainers. She fitted the bill, and she lives in South Africa. And one of the previous speakers did say about teams all over the world, and that's exactly what I manage. And she fitted the bill. I had a Zoom call with her. I knew very, very quickly that she would fit in. She responded very quickly. That's really important in today's workplace concerning the distance work that we all do, the speed of response. You can't wait a couple of days. That's not on. You've got to reply, hopefully the same day, at least the next day, by whichever channel it is, WhatsApp or whatever channel you use, and there are many, many of them. So that's really important, and establishing that dialogue. So with the remote working, establishing relationships is a little bit different from the real life situation. They've got to be quick. There's got to be a good persona, a good presence online. And I think that's true even when the employee is going to do a technical job, because the employee with the technical job, okay, sitting there at home with a laptop, working away, but it's still a human being. And that human being needs a connection to the other people in the team. And I think that's really, really important. Another aspect, of course, is doing your homework before the job. So many applicants don't do their homework. They don't read the website or see what the business is about. And that's hopeless. And that's a guillotine. Thank you. Goodbye. You'll get nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. That's how it is. So I'm conscious of a time pressure here. I'd like to contrast a few cultures. I've lived in Sweden for 3 years. Like the UK, Sweden is very, very organized, very precise, and very planned. They don't talk in terms of June, July, or August. It's week 10, week 12, week 15. That's how they talk, and that's how they're planned. So they're quite different. I'll contrast that with China for one point. I've worked intensively with Chinese people for a year, and they are fast and furious. They treat everything like a supermarket. It doesn't matter if it's a highly educational service or a tech service, whatever it is, they want an answer within 1 hour. And if they don't get it, they go somewhere else. Now, that may seem fantastic, but actually there are also many, many problems with that, because as a client, providing trainers in this case for people in China, I often feel I have to educate the client, because sometimes they don't really know what they want. And you do that in a polite way, of course. And that's the way it should be done. So those are two cultures. It also comes to mind to me, one of the speakers spoke about productivity and working at home. Yes, that's true. There is more productivity in a sense. My neighbor is a sales manager for a steel company. They've decided to scrap the office, saving £3,000 a month. Every person will be home-based. That's fine for him. But there are differences. It's not only the job, it's also the age. Young people actually need to go to an office sometimes because they need to meet together and build relationships with themselves. And also they need to hear the senior people giving tips and advice and so on and so on. So I've heard that many times in this year, that it's all very well for like me and maybe a little older people, we've built all our relationships and we know how to do it and we can build them online step by step. But younger people also need that. So that's another variable. So the whole picture is quite diverse and we need to take account of that. I did say I've got a list of hot sectors, but I may be running out of time.
Yes, thank you very much for that introduction, Dr. Mark Perkins. So we will be going to the question and answer period as soon as possible. So I'd like to introduce the next speaker or the next panelist. Who is Molade? Miss or Mrs., correct me, let me be sure I'm addressing you properly. Molade Adeniyi.
It's Mrs., but it's fine. Molade is just fine.
Okay, so Mrs. Molade Adeniyi. Okay, nice to have you on this panel. Molade is an highly motivated and experienced business manager with extensive experience delivering various multifunctional projects ranging from HR to B2C. B2C means business to consumer, if I'm correct. Yeah, yes. Yeah. So to B2C, business transformation, change management, investor sourcing, branding, and co-marketing. That's interesting. Your CV is quite huge. Okay, so she's a social entrepreneur with focus on youth and employment across Africa, which is our major focus here, particularly experience in Nigeria, West Africa. She has had various collaborations with various stakeholders from government to educators, to employers, to policymakers. So Omalade, over to you. Please just introduce yourself and you have 5 minutes to speak more on what you do.
Thank you very much, Omolara. And let me just start by saying thank you to the Knowledge Exchange Center for having me join this conversation, which I think is very timely. Thank you, Agogo and the team. We've worked very closely with them for a while. They're one of our amazing partners at Wave. And also welcome to my fellow panelists looking to sort of engage some more as we go on. Thank you for that amazing introduction, Dr. Perkins. You spoke to a few things that I was going to speak to. So as you've seen, my name is Molade Adeniyi. I have the privilege of leading an organization called WAVE, West Africa Vocational Education. We're focused on tackling youth unemployment by upskilling young people with the relevant employable skills, many of the things that Mark has said. So those things that you need to actually get yourself a job and stay on the job and be productive. And we've been doing that for we're in our 8th year now, and we've successfully reached over, 4,000 young people directly and another 50,000 through our growth partners, the Knowledge Exchange Center being one of them. So today I was asked to speak to leadership practices of virtual teams. So it's very interesting. I think what COVID-19 did for all of us last year is it forced all of us to work from home. And I like when Omolara, you gave your speech and you gave the distinction between remote working and working from home or teleworking, as the case may be. We had no choice. I think before that, a lot of people, especially in Nigeria, the concept of working from home was really a foreign one. You kind of have to be in the office. You kind of have to come in every single day. And as an organization at Wave, even before the COVID-19 pandemic, we already had a working from home policy. And for us, there was many reasons why we thought that this was important at that time. The stresses of commuting. If you live in Lagos, you know what that's like. You could spend 2 hours, 3 hours commuting to work on a good day and then commuting back. So we had instituted a working from home policy, which meant there was flexible hours. So it was very hybrid. The office was open. We do have a permanent office space, but it was very important for us from a mental wellness perspective and also from a productivity perspective that we looked at working from home. Now, COVID-19 pandemic, and then we all shut down. we were all now pushed and forced into this environment, into this economy where we all had to work from home. There was no options, there was no movement, and we sort of needed to make it work. So what I'm hoping to share today, and I know there's going to be some more questions, is some of the things that we have tried. It talks about leadership practices, but I think I would couch it more as the amazing people that I work with, on my leadership bench, some of the things that we have done to help our team be productive and stay engaged. Because I think one of the real reasons why why the working from home concept wasn't very pervasive was because people struggle to imagine that engagement levels will still be high, productivity levels will still be high. If I tell my people to work from home, is that when they're going to go to the salon and get their hair done? Is that when they're going to go do the market runs? Is that when they're going to go catch up with a friend? I need to make sure that when people have work, they are doing work. So what are some of the things that you want to make sure that work is being done? There is this misconception that when I work from home, deliverables are going to be delayed, deliverables are going to be subpar. And, we have some strategies that we have tried to ensure that we stay on top of productivity. And we have actually found that when you give people the work from home option, productivity can actually remain high if you put some things in place. And I have to definitely agree with Mark to say that when you work from home, you cannot have a complete 100% not interacting, especially, the average age on my team is about 35, 33, between 33 and 35. That face-to-face interaction is still very important. You still need to figure out, how do I get people to see each other? These screens are, I think they've done a lot of us, they've done our heads in over the last year, just staring at the screen and looking at people. There's something that body language does to you. There's something that just being in the same space as someone does. So I'm hoping that as I share more, I have some tips that I will share, but I would save that for a little bit later on some of the things that we have tried. And I'm hoping that you can, some people on here can also learn how to lead an effective virtual team as well. So let me stop there, and then we'll come back and continue the conversations later on.
Thank you very much, Malade, for that beautiful introduction. We'll get to the questions later, and then we can all just share our experience as we go. Okay, so next up is Dr. Ayo. Dr. Ayo Adeyemi. He is a partner at Lorashe Consulting. I hope I got that pronunciation correct. He's an exceptional international trainer and consultant with years of experience in marketing and business strategy, human capital management, investment portfolio management, SME management, business research, and leadership development. Like I mentioned earlier, Dr. Ayo is the CEO of Lorashe Consulting Limited, a firm focused on business management support, HR consultancy and strategy. He is the publisher of Business Quotient magazine and also a member of the Governing Council, National Institute of Marketing of Nigeria, and the Chartered Institute of Information and Strategy. Welcome once again, Dr. Ayo. And now you have your 5 minutes to please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. Good day to everyone. I want to thank the organizers for inviting me. Very quickly, I will just share my slide. I have some points I just want to share with us this morning. I've been mandated to speak on hiring remotely. For us, the pronunciation of our firm name is Lorashe Consulting. All right. Okay. So what we do is basically we service organization on HR services, various HR services, and one of the area of our strength as well is recruitment, outsourcing, and background check and training. All right, so I'll just quickly talk about the hiring remotely, and the keynote speaker has done some justice to that, and other contributors as well. The truth is that working remotely has come to stay. All right, it's a bit still, should I say alien or not totally settled down with us in this part of the world. But the truth is that it's here to stay. And for us, we then need to understand it. She has laid the foundation about what it is about working remotely. I just want to share this and say that, okay, the two parts of it is that you work with remote recruitment, and then that of the, working remotely need to be clearly understood by people. Of course, pandemic make it a reality for us, especially in Nigeria, in Africa. I'm sure in the time past or before the pandemic, if you have asked anyone to work from home, they feel that you are tending towards sacking them or relieving them of their job. Okay, but when the pandemic struck, it took a while for some organizations to adjust. But some other ones were very quick to adapt to that, and that has changed. And the major aspect I probably want to emphasize in my discussion, all right, maybe what are the things that are very essential, or what we consider, or perhaps let me say the benefit, for working remotely, especially to the employees, because sometimes when you don't have a good understanding of what it is you intend to achieve, people, like I said, they begin to be suspicious. Okay, if some of the organizations that have not been totally asking staff to work remotely begin to, deploy that as idea, they start begin to be inquisitive that going to happen. All right, so there's need for employees to also have that clear understanding, and these are some of the things that it helps to achieve increased productivity, no doubt, happier employee, because you want more time to yourself. It appears you have more time to yourself actually, but of course, maybe health benefits will come to that. All right, for those that perhaps do not have time to see their family, they probably be able to do a little bit of that. Then less time commuting, especially for us in this part of the world. I think this is more germane, very important, that the travel hours it takes from people from their home to work, sometimes 4 hours. I've seen people waking up waking up 4 a.m. and they will not return back to their home until like 11 p.m. And that can be very tough. And they spend an average of 5-6 hours on the road. So sometimes much more than the time they spend at their workstation. All right. So, and then it also gives opportunity for wider, talent pool, and that also has been emphasized, because then you are not limited by space or by location. It helps to get more smarter, intelligent people to work with you. Okay, so what other thing that we need to also consider when we look at this, is it really for everyone? Yes, it could sound to be for everyone. Of course, some of that has also been emphasized, but totally not totally for everyone, because there are some skill sets, there are some employee that may just have to be a certain location, but everybody really can still work remotely. It depends on what you have to do. But one of the things you need to then, to emphasize in getting right people are what strong and efficient communicators. That's very important, because now you don't have a direct contact. You are not having direct contact. So you can only hear me right now as I'm speaking. If I was in a more physical class, maybe I'll be able to do some more display. But when you have to listen to me virtually, then I should be very clear and be able to communicate very well. All right. So resourceful individuals that can find answers for themselves. Okay. Sometimes, when we are in the workstation, when we work together in the office, we could leverage or perhaps hide others from other people. And this happened in pandemic. One of our clients had to call us that we need to review. They want to do, they don't want to sack people, but they really have to be sure. But the lapses, a lot of lapses showed up because a lot of inefficiency showed up. Right? It means that naturally, because everybody's in the office, people hide under the other people. There are a lot of inefficiency, but it showed up. Then begin to so these are the number of people who've been keeping the system, less productivity. So, when you have to get people that must be fitting to work remotely, they must be very efficient and resourceful at their work. And people with previous remote experience, of course, here, like I said, it's a bit new to us here, but of course, the pandemic has also helped people to be able to.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ayo. We'll come back to more questions during the question and answer session, which we're going into right now. So thank you very much for that introduction. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to start from Dr. Mark Perkins. So while you were talking, you talked about when you're hiring, you hire for culture fit. And so one of the things I think I've struggled with as an interviewer is having to go back to candidates to say, oh, you're not a culture fit, even though you might have the necessary skills. So I'd like to give you the opportunity to tell us, how best do you communicate this? What exactly do you look out for in terms of culture? Because for us as organizations, culture is really important. Our new employees being culture fit, it's super important. So how do you identify this in candidates, and how do you also communicate this to them?
Yes. Okay. So the culture. I look for people who are quite flexible, but also disciplined and structured. So you've got to have, a bit of both really. they should be flexible, and yes, I want them to take initiatives. I want them to make suggestions about what we're doing and how we could improve things. I want them to be disciplined, for example, in keeping a record, a work record. So I use Google Drive and shared folders and shared files and so on. So I'm looking for people who will be disciplined in that sense and put up work records. And that is one of the difficult things, actually, because everybody's quite different. And some people find that difficult to do. And from the employer's point of view, it's very boring having to follow up on that all the time. Please fill in that sheet. You only need a few comments, a couple of lines, that's all. So I am looking for that. So in terms of that overall culture, in terms of the employee, I'm looking for that, but I'm also looking for the flexibility. And I think that Dr. Ayo made a really good point when he pointed out the communication skills of the people, because I recruited another person a couple of weeks ago, a PhD engineer, a good trainer of Python, the programming language. And you might think that for that, you just need to sit back in the laptop and be a techie. Not good enough for me. I wanted someone with the communication skills, and he had very, very good skills. So he can design a little course, introductory course for Python, but he can also communicate to the students. So in that little course, we're going to have a chat function and a Q&A and an office hours. So that ability was, for me, quite important as well. So I think maybe that answers a little bit of your question.
Yeah, that does. Thank you very much for that. So next up, as a follow-up, so one of the challenges with hiring tech talents, at least in this side of the world, is that ability to communicate. I know they always try to want to work in silos and say, oh, I do not have to communicate with the rest of the unit. And they are the ones actually clamoring for remote work because they feel like, oh, I can work remotely. I don't have to deal with all of these people. I don't have to deal with all of this human bullshit, forgive my language. So how do you deal with that? So like in terms of, how do you make sure that, yes, you've just mentioned that you've hired someone for his has PhD and his communication skills. How do we ensure that going beyond this, people understand that communication is actually a big skill?
If I may continue, I think it's important to realize, as we do, that all of these people are human beings, and you might have 5 or 10 people in different countries working on this technical side. Now, the problem for me in this is that they can be very, very isolated, and they're just doing this all the time, sending something off, and they don't have a sense of community with the other people. Now, some people might say it's not important, it doesn't matter. They just do the job and then finish at 5 o'clock or whatever and go off with their friends. Personally, I think it's quite important to have a kind of team feeling. And I don't think you should overdo it with that particular group of people. You don't have to have an hour every week when you chat about football or something like that. But now and again, I think you should have some little team meetings. And with my team, I like to get to know them a little bit. So I know one of my teachers likes music. And I often say, well, have you heard this piece? Or do you know that? Just little things like that. It's not going to distract from the work. It makes everybody feel better. And the technical people, they have their interests. They play football or they basketball or horse riding, whatever they do. So that's how I approach that problem.
Thank you very much for that. So I'll be moving on to Dr. Ayo Adeyemi. So Doctor, I understand that yesterday was your birthday, so happy birthday. That's great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. So over to you. So my question for you would be, understanding hiring, remote hiring. How do you think HR managers and business leaders can get the best out of the remote hiring experience?
Okay. What's very essential, when you need to hire remotely, is first of all to be very clear in your requirement. What really you want? Okay. Do you just need someone to sit behind the system, or you have some tasks to be get done. Okay, then when you do that, then you need to also articulate those skills that are very essential. Now, earlier I said it could be for everyone, but really, is everyone, I mean, do we have everyone ready to work remotely? Okay, so that's where the challenge is. Everybody, some people may even agitate for working remotely, and you should know they have material motive. And I will take an example from our client here. Even when people are not working remotely, people come to the office, sign in and run away, especially when it's government business. Okay, so when you now put them to work remotely, then you can understand that you are not going to get any results. So from the one, you must be very sure of what you want to achieve. Okay, and I must say this, okay, it may sound strange, but the remote working is going to lead us to most likely working or pay per hour in this client very soon. Because obviously, one of the ways you can checkmate productivity, which is your emphasis for employers to get the best out of it, is then we may have to pay per hour. And okay, my experience when I traveled out to Canada, okay, at the point I stayed with a friend who works for a company, and he said to me that he wants to go to town to do some one or two things, and that his system is going to be left on that should ensure that the system does not shut down. He's working remotely, but he has to go do other things. So he told me to be monitoring the system that does not shut down. Now, so it means that once the system is still up, it's assumed it's behind the system and it's working. So, and that is an advanced system, okay, where you are even paid per hour. All right, so for employee or for employers to get the best out of remote working, like I said, you must already be sure what you want, then you must articulate the skills that you require. Because the competence, earlier I said that people leverage on others when it is physical work. Okay, so suppose you get me into the employment, I could be able to bamboozle you, let me use that word, at the interview. So you are impressed, and I get on the job, and it happened that I'm lacking some skills. I have colleagues that I can leverage on them, but this is remote working. They won't leave their own house, they won't leave their own workstation to come to my house and help. So then you begin to look like, how do I get effective performance or productivity? So there's need for balancing from day one. There shouldn't be any form of sentiment. And if you just want to help, then know that you want to help. But if you want to get the best out of it, then define the terms and let everybody agree to the terms. Okay, I think I can drop on that.
So thank you very much. So your response is actually going to lead me on to Molade. And this is, just as is just mentioned, imagine now someone is in Canada and he's gaming the system, basically. That's what is just explained. You basically game the system. Someone has to be watching your laptop while you're going out to do something. So Molade, how have you been able to manage this from your company? Like, you've worked remotely even before the old pandemic. So you had a bit of experience before the old pandemic came up. So how have you been able to manage this and ensure that your employees are actually not gaming the system?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. I don't have anybody who's working across the continent. I mean, we do have one staff member, but so I don't know that I'd be able to answer that question from that perspective. We don't have computer monitoring systems. So we don't have systems where if you step away from your computer, we can tell, or I'm watching your keystrokes. I have heard of those sort of systems. But I think the first thing that, I love the conversation around the whole culture fit and people understanding the why. So I think as a leader, as the CEO, my first job is to get everybody to buy into the why of why we're here. Does everybody understand their roles and their responsibilities? Does everybody understand what their job entails? And that comes through having appropriate job descriptions, KPIs, etc. Does everybody have that? Now, one thing that we have always done, and one thing that I always say to people when we have virtual teams, still does not mean you cannot have the check-ins. So the first thing is, how are you checking in with your teams? We have a tracker, and we work, because it's virtual, again, we work with Google Docs. So there's a Google Doc that everybody is expected to go in once a week and update their tasks. So it's a case of, this is what I'm working on this week, and this is where I am. Now, I'm not fixated on you have to work 9 to 5, or you have to work 8 to 6. Those are your work hours. I'm more fixated on, this is the task that you have to do. Are you meeting those deliverables? So even before COVID, right, when we saw people were falling behind, so if you have deliverables, you're working from home and you're not meeting those deliverables, our policy states that it means that we need to now start seeing you come to the office, because clearly there is something, stopping you from being effective from working remotely. So there are some things that we have put in place. So that tracker is there, where as a manager, each manager can go in and see exactly, what their teams are doing. I can go in and see what everyone's doing, because we have marked KPIs and we have, this is what I expect you to achieve. Once I begin to see that that is dropping, I begin to know that there's something wrong with your productivity. Then we sort of have a conversation about it. But I think the very first thing is being clear about the objectives, being clear about what you expect from them. I think a lot of people actually want to do the job, but a lot of people don't actually know what they're supposed to do, because we haven't clearly articulated what that is. So I have ideas in my head. And then when this person isn't meeting them, I get frustrated, but I haven't actually communicated to say, these are the sort of expectations that I have from you. So the number one thing that I have written down interestingly is communicating with virtual teams exactly what is expected of them, and how are you able to track that? There's lots of tools. So I've just talked about Google. We use Google Docs or Google Sheets, where I can go in anywhere I am. There are tools like Slack, and there's so many other tools out there. There's Asana. So we also use Asana at work, where you actually assign a task. So with Asana, I can go in and I can assign a task to someone. There's a timeline on there. It tells me when, and the person's responsibility is to go in when the task is done, let me know that it's done. So there's a way of checking. So I would say communicate what the key objectives are, what you expect from this role, and have a system where you're making sure that there is that constant feedback and communication loop is going through. So the fact that I'm not seeing you face to face doesn't mean we shouldn't talk. We should still have, that communication open.
Okay, thank you very much for that. There's a comment or rather a question from one of the attendees, and I think you're the best person to answer this. So it says, how to manage remote working and still balancing effectively, keeping up with performance. So I'm guessing this is basically how you manage. You've sort of answered part of this question. So if you would like to shed more light, this is more of performance management and managing a virtual team.
So I think one thing that we've just recently started doing as well is feedback is important. So I'm encouraging all my team leads to give feedback to their teams on how they're doing on their performance. So I know that most organizations have a biannual performance management system. So twice a year you come in and you check where I am. But I'm actually encouraging us to do it a bit more often. So I have this in virtual check-ins. I have this informal check-ins. It might be once a month. And the whole idea is, how do I just come in and just say, hey, how are you doing in relation to performance? Don't let's wait until half year before we realize that, oh my gosh, we are falling behind target. How do we have periodic check-ins? And they can be informal. So it doesn't have to be anything super serious. Have a cup of coffee, encourage people to bring their cup of coffee, their cup of tea, Coke, Fanta, whatever it is that you drink, maybe not alcohol during the work day, but you get what I mean. Having those sort of frequent feedback sessions actually helps people keep on track and stay on track. And how do you then reward performance? I think one way that we also think through this is it's a carrot and stick, right? For those who are performing, and if you've given them the right tools. So one of the other things I had written down was, as a manager leading a virtual team, have you equipped them with the right tools they need to actually work effectively from home? We all know what it's like in Nigeria, generally, the infrastructure. So from when they come into the office, they mostly have access to data. There's free internet. They don't have to worry about that. There is power, so they power their tools. But what this last year has taught all of us is infrastructure is still a big problem in Nigeria. So power situations is still, I had people who said to me, Malade, I haven't had light for 48 hours. So I've not been able to charge my laptop, or I've had to go somewhere to get my laptop charged. So if you're going to run virtual teams, you have to be able to find some investment to help support the working from home. So is it support towards data? Either pay for the data or subsidize the data, whatever it is. I know our budgets are different. We had the opportunity, we had a funder who was able to support us with some power boxes, some solar boxes. So we're able to give some team members solar power, which is a very small solar power. It's not going to power your fridge. It's not going to power, your TV, but it will power your laptop and your phone, your work tools. So if you're going to ask people to work from home, then you need to make sure that they have the right tools to be able to do so. laptops, phones, mode of communication. Otherwise, productivity is going to drop. If I can't charge my phone, if I don't have data, then I'm not going to be able to do the work, no matter how much I want to be able to do the work. So again, I think employees need to start demanding from their employers a little bit more support. And when we had the opportunity to open the office, we opened up the office, because another thing with the structure of the way we are in Nigeria, I might live in a house and it might just be me, my husband, and 2 children. The children go to school, I have a space I can run to. But there's many people, I live in a house and I really don't have anywhere to go. I don't know if that makes any sense. Working from home means I'm either sitting on my bed, which is bad for my back, or I'm sitting with so much noise around. So people also might need to go somewhere else. And that's where, if you have the opportunity for them to come in, and that hampers productivity. So it's understanding each individual's unique working styles. Working from home can't work for everybody for various reasons. And for those that it can work from, are you supporting them to make sure that they're productive? Now, after I've done all of that and you're still not productive, then that's when we begin to have the conversations and we begin to have the consequences for your sort of lack of productivity.
Thank you very much for that, Molade. So I'd like to move on to Dr. Perkins. So Dr. Perkins, I'd like to ask you, what are the skills, or rather, how do you think the Nigerian candidates, or should we say African candidates, can position themselves for these global opportunities that are out there? Okay,
well, I'd just like to pick up on a point that Molade said first, which was about the annual satisfaction survey. Personally, I think that's kind of should be dead in the water, because the world of work is a flow. It's a continuous flow. And the feedback to the employees and vice versa all the time is really, really important. And life is not like a factory in 100 years ago, where the same thing was produced all the time. It's a flow of projects and work and projects like that. So I think coming back to your question, what about the Nigerian candidates in the global workplace? Well, from my point of view, I'd be looking for the same properties and qualities as anybody. And I think that's generally true for most of the world. I must say, I do think China is rather different, and it's got very particular characteristics, but we're not really here to talk about that in depth. But it doesn't make any difference to me whether I've got a CV here from Nigeria or from, I don't know, France or something like that. There are opportunities. It's got to be well organized, well presented, good communication, the right skills, the potential, as I said. I'm looking for enthusiasm. I'm looking for commitment. That's really important. People who want to work, not in a stupid way, don't go overboard, which sometimes people do. They use language which is too, how can I put it, flowery or too strong, too intense. I'm not looking for that. I don't want that. I want normal enthusiasm for the job. That is one point that I have noticed in some countries. I have some colleagues in Pakistan, for example, and they really go far too much in that regard, so that it's meaningless. And the employer sees that kind of language and thinks, well, what is this? I don't understand it. We don't relate to anything like that. So we just need a professional attitude, but doesn't mean to say that this person is the finished product. You never are. I'm not, certainly not, and I've learned a lot today. And so that is another thing that candidates need to think about. If they're from Nigeria, for example, don't think you have to be the finished product. Think, I have these things to offer, because the employer will look at you in the way I described. They will also look at your potential. How could this person develop? How could this person work in our organization? So I hope that was helpful.
Thank you very much for that. That was super helpful. So on to Dr. Ayo. So my question would be, what are the challenges you faced organizing remote interviews, especially here in the Nigerian market? What's the challenges you faced with your candidates?
All right, thank you. That's an interesting question. Like I said earlier, I think people are still trying to adapt to this idea, but the truth is that because we understand as well that sometimes network or connectivity can be challenging, so we give a good notice, enough notice. We also try to work with reality as to if some of them are still in employment, okay, it may be difficult for them to be involved in interview during the work hour, right? So we take that into consideration. But we will obviously check with you to confirm your flexibility and your the time if you are convenient with that. So, but what we have seen, or our experience has been that, well, for me, okay, right now that I'm speaking to you, okay, I'm sure you see my background that something, the banner, there's another ongoing summit, so I've had to excuse myself, okay, from that to join this. But we have about 5 internet facilities that we use, and just because I want to be ensured that we don't give excuses, right? So for me, if you then going to have an interview, or perhaps you need to attend an interview, if you already know like that, so there are workstations that are virtual or maybe places you could rent to go. So, but what we have experienced really, based on your question, is that there are always that challenges of getting to hear people clearly, and then some people does not seem to understand it. I think there are ethics to this thing, to being virtually interviewed. Sometimes you find people just use any location. Sometimes it will be dark, you can't even see their faces, and some other time they want to hide their video. And I mean, if you can't come to my office and I don't know who I'm speaking with, do I even know whether you have engaged a contractor to sit in for the interview for you? All right. So these are some of the challenges, and but I believe, like I said, this has come to stay. People will get better, but these are challenges. Connectivity in the interview, individuals not really getting set. Okay, they just want to treat it as one of those things that is normal. They want you to believe that you can understand that there are challenges. But I feel people need to get more smarter, more intelligent. All right, if you really need the job, then you need to really say, because it starts from there for me, really. If you cannot really manage your hand, all right, to be able to attend an interview, then it says a lot that when you get on the job and you're going to work remotely, that will be challenged. Okay, so these are some of the experiences we've had. And some other time, people really tell you they will attend and they will not show up. They will not even log on. And then you're like, what is happening? Okay, we can understand. Maybe 1 or 2 things has come up and all of that. So, all right.
I'm so happy with this session because I think I can relate to practically everybody's experience, especially with candidates not showing up, candidates coming onto interview in singlet tops, sitting anyhow in their apartments and all of that. It's been pretty much interesting. And one of the things I also like that Malade mentioned was the check-in sessions, which is something we're also doing here at CCO. We're making sure that all our managers are having check-in sessions with their employee. You're not waiting for the biannual performance evaluation before you start talking to them about whatever knowledge gaps they have. You need to start checking in as soon as possible. For my own team, I make sure that I meet with my team at least at most every 2 months to say, oh, hello, what's up, where are you? What's the problem? What's the challenge? How can I help you? What knowledge gaps do you have? These are the knowledge gaps I have identified. How do I make you move from point A to point B? And I think it's been working pretty well. And I think I've seen some of the feedbacks from my teammates, like they don't tell me, they tell other people, and I'm like, oh, I think I'm doing something well in this leadership position and all of that. So thank you very much. So one last question will be one of the questions from the panelists, and I think I'm just going to throw it out to any of you because I'm not sure who is going to actually answer this. So let me just read it out. So the question is from Joshua. It says, I'd like to know, for a fresh candidate who has no experience in a particular job, how can this work remotely since he has no experience? Do you think it might be hard for such a person to find a job in the era of remote working? What is your advice? So who's going to answer this? I personally think this person should not be thinking of remote working at this point.
Okay, let me go first. For normal work, I mean, when you call physical work, there's a process to get staff onboarding. Same thing is applicable to, all right, whatever virtual. The truth, I won't most agree is that working remotely does not still make you an alien to the organization. It doesn't take it away from the fact that you are still part of the system. You are still working with the system. Okay, so you can still leverage on all of those mentoring, coaching, and whatever, right? So it depends on the organization itself or to define, okay, how do you want to relate with your staff That they are working remotely does not make them an expert or a consultant to the organization. Okay, they are still part of the system. So once the person, I mean, if you are bringing on board intern or management training, that we call them, there must be that defined part. Okay, attach them to who is going to guide them all the way. But I think the first thing is from the onboarding process. Okay, make it clear. All right, give them the necessary training, even when it's a Zoom. Because for instance, I might be savvy using technology, but when I get into a different system, that maybe wait, or okay, we are using Zoom now. There are Teams, that WebEx, that other platforms. Okay, so I may not be totally strong on other platforms. I may be very versatile with Zoom. So you need to train me. You don't, if that I'm novice about that does not mean that I can adapt. Okay, so it's also depends on the kind of person you are bringing on board. So I don't think it's absolutely wrong or bad, really, bringing a fresher on board. But what I would say to every new, fresh graduate is that get yourself developed. Don't wait for organizational development. The place of personal development is very, very important. And the truth is that, in fact, the pandemic and the virtual work has exposed a lot of information online. It's just part of listening that people don't want to go. You don't have to pay. You can go through different tests, learning experience, and you still get certificate free of charge. All right. Some people are paying for it. So you go all the way and learn, and you must continuously improve yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Ayo. Dr. Perkins, do you like to answer that?
Yes, so I fully agree with what Dr. Ayo has said. To give a tip to, I think it was Joshua, I'd say this, Joshua, do you ever speak to your friends on Zoom? Do you ever speak to your friends on whatever it is, Skype or some other platform? You probably do. Why not have a little practice with them? Think about your interests. What are you interested in? Is it chess? Is it, as I said, is it football? Is it anything? Practice with your friends. Set up a little meeting, and just speak for a few minutes on your interest. And in that way, you can begin to get into this virtual world, which is all, still quite new for many of us. So think of it that way. And as Dr. Ayo said, there's also so many free resources on the internet. Find something that's your interest, and that's terribly important, your motivation, and then set up a little practice with your friends. And that's an easy way in, and a practice for when you do enter the workforce, and maybe you have to have an interview on Zoom with questions and so on. So warm up.
Hi, Madale, do you want to contribute to that?
To be honest, I think everybody has, I think both Dr. Perkins and Dr. Ayer have said it all. I think there's no limits. Yes, the organization has a place in onboarding people. I wouldn't put a limit on myself just because I don't have any experience. Am I willing to learn? I mean, I like to say there's willingness to learn. Are you hungry to learn as well? There's lots of information out there. Just get in there and just try. You never know until you try. I'm a stickler for just trying things out. Just try it out. And if it doesn't work, you ask yourself, what did I learn from it and how do I become better next time? So yeah, just don't shoot it down until you've given it your best shot. And the only way to give it your best shot is to make sure that you're adequately prepared for that. But yes, on the other side, I think organizations also onboarding people during the season is important. So what are organizations doing to make sure, because it's really tough to bring in someone into a team remotely. So what are organizations also doing to make sure that onboarding process is seamless and actually gives everyone a sense of belonging as well?
That's fine. So I can see some other questions that probably missed. So I'll just see if we can take that. Is it me or there's an interruption?
There is, but I think it's gone now.
Okay. So I just wanted to ask this question. So there's someone. So Jinika asked a question, or rather she's asking a question, but there's some statement to it. She says,
I just want to chip in that somebody at work is already attending the name ceremony. All right, so that's what's happening.
Yeah, that's it. So that's gaming the system. Someone's attending something. So, so there's this question from Ginny Kanwa. So she says, I have a female employee who went on maternity leave. After birth, she requested to work from home because of some childbirth implications. Her request was declined because her position requires visiting the office daily. She kept mute and didn't give a resignation. My question is, should we terminate her and get a replacement?
So let me speak to this as a CEO. I think, first of all, what is your organization's policy? I think it's important to understand everything has to be done from an organizational policy perspective. But I think also communication is key. I say to my staff sometimes, before we bring out the sledgehammer, can we have conversations? Can we just communicate and find out what's going on with people? There's a phrase that has become my mantra now, is people don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care. In a workplace, people just want to feel a sense of belonging. There might be, do we understand what the childbirth implications are, what the complications are? Do we even know if she's still alive and well and kicking? There's just that part of the whole conversation that we just need to sort of make sure that from an organization perspective, we're caring. Yes, the job still needs to be done, and I'm not saying do that at the expense of the job that needs to be done, but a quick conversation, just finding out what's going on, explaining why working from home isn't allowed in this role or isn't possible in this role. And I do know that there are roles that you just can't work from home. I'm a nurse, for instance. I can't work from home as a nurse because I need to administer injections and I need to do certain things. And some people just don't understand that. But having the conversation is helpful. And I think when most people are reasonable, I would say, once you're able to have that conversation, then you can begin to talk about what the sort of next steps are. So I don't know that anyone on here is going to be able to say yes, terminate her, or no, terminate her. It's an organizational decision that needs to be made at the end of the day. But I would say definitely have that conversation to just understand what's going on with her. If we can help, this is how we can. And if we cannot help, let's just come out there and move on what needs to be done. But caring, those caring connections are super important for any organization.
Thank you very much for that. Anyone else want to answer that question?
If I can add that, things are changing and changing so fast. And one of the things the employers need to understand is that your staff manual handbook need to be upgraded. If you are factoring working remotely, then you need to upgrade it immediately, right? Like in instance that's mentioned here, there are policy guiding childbirth or whatever. Okay, so if you have not upgraded your staff handbook or whatever your terms of engagement, then you might need to apply, what I call a lot of reasoning to this. Okay, so, but again, when you don't see your employee as strategic part of the business, you see them as either contractor or they are just come to earn their living. That's what happens. And that's why somebody also feel like, okay, I'm going to perhaps hold the company to ransom. Okay, so that need for that cohesiveness, that need for that teamwork, understanding, and a commitment from both parts. Okay, like Maria has said. So for us to get the best out of this situation. Okay, but one of the things I want to emphasize really is that employers must work on their engagement terms, given the new order of things, given the new way of doing running your organization's operations. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I'd just like to also chip in something. So if what I'm understanding is this person has childbirth implications. So I'm thinking, and since the organization is not willing to allow her work from home, then I'm guessing she should be getting time off. So what's the company's sick leave policy? What's the company's policy on using your annual leave after your maternity leave? Those are conversations that should be had. And also, instead of terminating her and getting a replacement, how about reassigning her to a role that possibly does not require her having to come in? Those are conversations that should be had before you think about terminating someone's contract. And like Dr. Aya said, when you're looking at your employees as contractors or just whatever word you would like to use for it, that's when you don't care about them away from what they do for you as an organization. The world of work now needs employers to actually care for their employees beyond their performance. You need to care about their mental health, because your employees are actually coming to the office space in all their problems, all their personal problems. It's going to actually affect how they deliver on their jobs. So please, Jinika, if you can hear us, please take our advice and go back. Termination should be the last option, not the first option you are thinking of as an organization. Okay, so one last question that is here, it's from Solomon. So it's about 3 questions. If any, what are the likely risks associated with working remotely? 2, is there any special way to package CV for remote jobs? Wow. And number 3, I perceive having PayPal account to be paramount to remote jobs, especially international remote jobs. What are the alternatives to using PayPal accounts? Who wants to answer these questions? So these are final questions. I'm going to just wrap up.
Okay, I could try. Okay, I think Dr. Max wants to say something. Go ahead. Right.
Yes, I'll just, excuse me, I'll just comment on one of those anyway. I think risks we can categorize risks in several ways. I think Dr. Ayer mentioned a move towards payment per hour, and there is a move towards this. So if we have people who are paid per hour and maybe they're very technical and they're working remotely with very little contact with the organization, the risk is they will just leave. They will find some better contract next week and they go. So loyalty is a risk. And I think it is a risk overall with remote learning. And that's why we need to have those feedback mechanisms and those communication channels all the time, not just twice a year or whatever. And that's been pointed out. So that's one risk. Secondly, there are the formal risks of leakage of information, for example, or inappropriate behavior online, inappropriate emails or texts, and things like that. Now, very large organizations will have a way of monitoring that because all the mails, the text, and so on will be stored. But smaller organizations may not do. So that is also one of the risks. And there are many risks. A third risk may be that the employee leaves the business and takes some clients with them. That's another risk. So we can unpack this idea of risk, and I just thought I'd mention perhaps 3 of them.
Thank you, Dr. Perkins, for that. So do we want to go ahead to answer any of these other questions? Or,
okay.
So it doesn't have to be Dr. Perkins. So the other questions is there any special way to package CVs for remote job? I perceive having PayPal account to be paramount to remote job, especially international remote job. What are the alternatives to using PayPal accounts? Okay,
let me add maybe 1 or 2 risks to what Dr. Mark has said. I think the environment, of the work environment is also a potential risk, depending on where this employee stays, because of the confidentiality of some of the information from the organization. Okay, another major risk is even the gadget or the device being used. Okay, is it completely owned by the company, or you leave it at the expense of the employee to go get laptop, get whatever they have to use? So that also is another risk. You know how hacking, server attack, all of those could be a major risk if it's not totally put in control. Right. Okay, and then the management of those tools, okay, also depend on the discipline of the employees. Okay, and that is why I'm sure when you do remote work, you don't leave it that 100 years they are on complete remote work. There must be a convergence occasionally or appearance at some place, maybe a rotational convergence in the office from different department to section. So I'll leave at that. Okay, so are there a special way to package your CV? Well, my response would be that, again, don't let lose the consciousness that you are still working with an organization and you're still going to work within an ecosystem or within a business environment. So, but what will be more important will be the skills that you have acquired, because what are the essential things that a prospective employer wants to see in your CV is to see some of those skills that are very essential. So what I think will be more important, what are the information that will make your CV more relevant? And what are those skills, right, that you have acquired? Right. Some people, I mean, I see people acquired as much as about 20 new skills during pandemic, just getting the FECCA certificate, which is good. Anyway, no knowledge is lost. You don't know when it will be relevant. But the truth is, your CV should still be more professional. Okay, people, but they want to see what you have accomplished or achieved, all right, which is a bit more of the emphasis. So if you have worked more remotely, then people will be more interested to see what are the results of working more remotely, and perhaps that can give you leverage over all the people that are also competing for that job. So the last one, which says that PayPal account to be more for job. Well, again, the fact that you work remotely does not mean your money will pay. Anyway, your money is being paid remotely, whether you work remotely or not. The fact is that there will always be a transfer to your account. All right, so maybe you want to promote PayPal. Well, fine. But the truth is, there will always be a payment of transfer through the banking system. So maybe the Bitcoin will not come into place eventually for payment of salary. I don't know that, but I shall know that you must still have your bank account. You must still have a way of receiving your job. But for internationally, like you said, well, it's still banking operations, there are internal banking operations globally, so that will also be very relevant. So I don't think that should be a worry, because it will be different situation based on different organizations. But what's important is that will you get your salary, whether in foreign currency or local currency, then that may come to play. Right? Also, that will come to play along with the terms of engagement, okay? Because the truth is that if you work locally and you work with a global organization, you should also understand your timing may likely be different. You may have to stay up in the night when Nigerians are sleeping. Okay, so there are the different things that will come to play that I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ayo. I think I would like to thank everyone, Dr. Perkins, Molade. Thank you all very much for this insightful session. It's been a pleasure to moderate this session. So I'd like to ask if you guys have any final words you'd like to share with our participants and attendees, and then we'll just wrap it up.
I just want to finally share something around leading virtual teams. So here I'm speaking to any HR managers in the room, any sort of managers, etc. As we continue to work virtually, I think one thing that we all overlook is the mental wellness of our teams. How do we make sure that we also, that is top priority? So I like this term called the water cooler conversation. So when you're in a physical office, there are people who gather and they talk about things that are going on. How do you replicate that virtually if there is no opportunity to come together? It's important that you create that space. You have the conversations around mental wellness. We have virtual TGIFs where people come. It might be karaoke today. It might be guess the artist. You know, you do some giveaways. We send little mini food packs to people. We send little birthday cakes on their birthdays. So some things that you would do in a physical office, you know, make sure you can do them as well in a virtual space as much as you can. It really just helps with bonding. Don't assume that because you're okay logging in and looking at the screen every day, everybody's okay with that. Have a session on how do you maintain your mental health? How do you, reduce screen time? Because your eyesight is also an issue. So I think it's important that employers also, factor that in. And you can do things really inexpensively. So you don't need a lot of money to do certain things. But these are the things that really matter at the end of the day and ultimately lead to higher productive and engaged teams. So that's my final takeaway.
Thank you, Molade.
Could I add a few words to that? That mental well-being, and also what Dr. Ayo said about time zones. And I think that's terribly important. The time zones are really important, and also the days that you work, because today there can be a pressure on people to work every single day of the week, Monday to Sunday. It's no different. Friday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, it's no different. And oh dear, part of the team is in the United States, the other part is in Australia or China or something like that, but you have to attend the meeting. So you have to attend it at 4 a.m. in your local time. Now, to me, this is not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. And I think that we all have to fight against it in a way, because we're all under the pressure to give into it. And I don't like it at all. So that's would be my parting thing. Let's try to keep some idea of normality in our working days and working lives. Otherwise, people will be so stressed, they will have those mental health issues. So that would be my final note.
Thank you very much, Dr. Perkins. Dr. Aya, one final word from you.
Yeah, let me say thank you to the organizers. This is a really impacting session, and I think we need to do more for this, especially like the commissioner said, there's need to really help our youth. When we were looking for job, in fact, when I was looking for job, there was no telephone in Nigeria. I mean, we only do have to queue at the Nikon or what have you those days. But then the telephone comes. So now we now do a lot of interview online. So things are evolving. We need to help our youth. Their interests, seems to be their interests are totally different from what it is now. But you need them in the system. Okay, she mentioned about even people that you thought should be more technology savvy, and they come into the system, and then you have to train them, right? So I think it has to do a lot with our curriculum too from the school, right? This is very important. Our curriculum needs to be revived because this has really changed. The pandemic has brought a lot of disruptions. Okay, the summit we are having is about technology. How can you use technology to get the best out of your profession? Right, so things are changing so fast. So we need to do more of this. I want to ask that the organizer do more of this. Take this to as far as the secondary schools. All right, take it as far as to that level. It will help them. And I think I want to say congratulations on the success of this. Thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you all very much. It was a pleasure meeting and having this conversation with all of you. So I'd like to hand over to Stephanie, and that's a wrap from me. Hello, Daya, are you there?
Hello. Omolara, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, very well.
Thank you very much for that amazing session. Thank you, Dr. Perkins. Thank you, Dr. Ayo. Thank you, Molade Adeniyi. Thank you very much. That was very insightful. Thank you, thank you. So we will be going into the break session before we go into the second session. But we have some announcements and some goodies for you for this second session. So I will just make some announcement now. First, before I go into the announcement, we want to wish Dr. Ayo happy belated birthday. I heard yesterday was his birthday, so happy birthday to Dr. Ayo. He was one of the panelists for this just concluded panel discussion. So for the people that didn't join at the beginning of this session, I would just want to reiterate who KEC is, what we do, and how we do what we do. So KEC is a non-profit organization, also a CSR initiative of the Excel African Group, where we are simply established to tackle, the unemployment issues in Nigeria, and that we've been doing since 2015. Some of our programs, not limited to the career workshop, we have the employability series, where we give insight on job-related issues, insight that can help you and prepare you towards career growth. So we have that employability series. We also have this extensive and more deep program that we call the GAP network. The GAP network. So the GAP network is the Graduate Advancement Program Network, which is a 3-month program. The 3 months is further broken down into a 1-month program, whereby we train you on about 15 employability courses, and after that we'll put you into internship for 2 months. So in between this program, we've strategically featured a career counseling session and a mentoring session in between this program to make the GAP network a well-structured and designed project that has all the components to help to equip fresh graduates with the skills they need to cross that bridge into employment. Also, we will be having some of our open courses, and I will be sharing with you some of the open courses that we will be having soon. We'll be having the next open course May 28th, which is on data analytics and visualization. So we'll be having we'll be having that course now. So to register, if you check the chat session now, to register, the registration link for this open course that it's free. The registration link for that open course that I just shared with you now is in the chat section. So if you check your chat section, you will see the registration link for that open courses. Also, I will try to share your screen as I go on with some of the ones we have following the May 28th that we have. We have some other programs that include project management, UI and UX design, project development, so all those technical skills. Also, we would like to share some goodies with some of our participants because we understand that you have been using data to actually engage this program. So we'll be sharing some recharge cards to you guys. So it will be a matter of the fastest finger. So we will display this after my announcement, so you can actually load the cards if you have access to them. So also, we are not done with the career workshop yet. We still have the second session. The second session, we will be on break now. Then the second session will start exactly by 2 p.m. and we'll be having a presentation on building remote career. So after this presentation, we'll have this panel discussion that talks about building a remote career, where we'll be having the moderator, Maria Glover, who will be moderating that session. We'll also be having the panelist, Bubemi Atimomo. Also, we'll be having another panel Benga Adebigi, and the other person that will be there also will be Ruth David. That will be having this particular session. I would encourage job seekers to stay for this particular session because it's specifically tailored for job seekers to answer so many those numerous questions that you have. So this particular session is tailored for you to answer those particular questions that you have. Also, we are not done. The day one is not all to the career workshop. Tomorrow we'll be having the day two of the career workshop, where we'll be having hands-on training on 4 different skills. We'll be learning how to the basics of Canva. We'll be learning on digital marketing. We'll be learning on job hunting strategy. Also, tomorrow we'll be having the career counseling session. The career counseling session is this session whereby career counselors who are HR professionals, career coach, and things like come together to give you those insights, those they help you solve that problem relating to your career, relating to your job, probably interviews and CV. So it's on the spot. You give them what you would like them to solve for you, and they actually solve that. So now I'll be displaying the recharge cards for our participants. So hope you can see that on the screen. Okay, so if you are able to recharge this card, just notify us in the chat section that you were able to recharge the card. So this is the first one. I'll give it some time before I change it to the second one. So let's wait for some time. So once you are able to recharge the card, just tell us in the chat section so we can move ahead. So I think it's safe to move to the second one. Okay, I'm moving to the third one now. I'm moving to the fourth one. Okay, I'll be going to the 5th one now. So like I said once again, the second session, the link to the second session will drop in the chat section now. In case you don't have it before, it's already in the chat section. So in case you don't have it before, the link to the second session, and I said, this is particularly tailored for job seekers. So if you're a job seeker, I will particularly encourage you to join this second session, which tries to talk about building a remote career. So thank you very much. See you by 2 for the second session. Thank you very much.
You don't hustle tire. You know they take you holiday. You write application, you go for auditions, but still, it be like saying no they pay. They don't laugh you tired. Some say until your mate get the aeroplane. Before you